Hey guys, Brian Castro here with Better Chess Training. And before I get moving with the video, I want to wish you a happy new year. I hope that you had a very good 2017, and I'm wishing you the best for your chess and your life in 2018. And to start this year off with our first video, I wanted to share a very instructive position. So if you want to try to solve this before moving forward, go ahead and pause the video, take a few minutes, and see if you could come up with the best continuation for white. Okay, I hope you had a chance to try to figure it out. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to kind of go step by step because every single position here is very important to understanding it. And the key elements in this position, if we take a look at it, is this advanced pawn by white here, and as well as the fact that the king positions. So in the end game, the advancement of the pawns and trying to promote a pawn is usually one of the main themes, and typically we try to support that with our king. And in this position, our white king is not really well placed. However, our pawn is so far advanced, we just need a little help. So if there's a way we can do that tactically, that would be great. The other thing to note here is the rook positions. Black's rook is ideally placed in general in that it is behind white's passed pawn. So it's in a great position, and that's typically where we want it. White's rook is protecting it, but it's not so well placed because now it's going to have a hard time leaving this rank. However, we are a pawn up, and so it's not. We don't have anything to fear there. We could probably at least hold a draw, but what we want to try to do is see if there's any way to advance the position. So there's a few moves we can consider, and I'm going to go give you a couple of the ideas of the ones I analyzed and try to see what we could do. First off, I thought about just taking this pawn. Let's just look at it from Black's point of view. Black can, if we don't do anything, or if we somehow it was Black's turn to move, he would just take this pawn with check with the rook and be in a pretty good position, or even with the pawn, either way, and would be at least a draw, and with a well-placed rook and a well-placed king. So that's what we have in mind here. The first candidate that I considered and that you might have considered is G takes F5. And probably the most natural move from there is just would be just to take it with king takes F5. And the problem here is that even though white is ahead of pawn, he's going to quickly lose this pawn because white's king is not in position to support it. So this is going to quickly lead to a draw. I'll give you a couple examples here. Of course, we can't advance this, but maybe we can see if Black will fall for some tricks with some checks, and he's not going to. He's just going to play king to G6, rook to B6 check, king to H7, and if we stop checking, he's just going to take this pawn. So if we were to check again, he just repeats the position. Notice that we cannot improve our king's position at this point because he's just going to take this pawn. So this is a draw. So we keep that in mind, but we're going to try to find something better. The next idea I had was this idea that sometimes if I could get both pawns to the sixth rank, it's actually better than a rook. It can often defeat a rook. Okay, so one thought was to play rook to b4 check. Okay, and after a move like king to e5, which would seem logical to defend here, we just play g5, sacrificing this rook. Now, of course, there's a problem with this that I found fairly quickly. Rook takes b4 and g6, and here's the idea: is that the black can stop us with rook to g4 check, and then after I move, he just takes the pawn, and then he can just grab this pawn as well. just to give you the example here without changing the position too much, if black were to say, let's say this king were not here, and black were to play, say, play rook to h4, then these pawns can advance um, here, and we can see if we took the h pawn, then this pawn would queen, and of course, um, if we got behind this pawn and this king were not here, then the other pawn would queen. So um, actually, in this case too, even if we took this pawn, then this one would queen. So typically, the pattern is that um, two pawns on the sixth rank are better than a rook, and unless there's a case here where he can get a fork in. Okay, so rook to b4 check, or at least the initial idea, uh, doesn't work for us. Okay, so that brings about g5. So g5 has a lot of merits in that it protects the h pawn, so that potentially frees this rook, and also tries to set up that position we talked about with two pawns on the sixth rank. The problem here is that we have rook to g4 check, okay? And after we move the king, here king to h3 is logical, attacking the rook. He can just pick this up. Now, the idea here, though, is that we have a couple moves to our favor. Now, we can't advance this pawn, because if we did, then rook to h5 check would just win this pawn. Okay, but see if you haven't come up with it in your analysis, see if you can figure out white's next move in this sequence. Okay, I hope you all had a chance to take a look at this position, and I hope you found rook to b4 check. Okay, here after the king moves, we now have a position that is a forced win for white. So it's white to move, and before I tell you what we do next, because there is still a way to misstep here, see if you can figure out white's next move. Okay, uh, white's next move here is h7, advancing this pawn. And I hope you found that, and I hope you saw that after rook to h5 check, we can now play rook to h4 because of that intermediate check we played with rook to b4 earlier. And here now, of course, we're going to either um, allow this pawn to advance and promote and lose our rook, or we're going to trade rooks and our the king is not going to be able to stop the white pawn. Just going back real quick, some of you may have initially thought that we should put the rook right behind the pawn right away. The problem with this, of course, is that now uh, black has time to get his rook back. Rook to g8, h7, and rook to h8. And here again, this is the problem with this for white is that white's king is too far away to support this pawn or to help in advancing it. For example, if we play king to g3, then there's a couple options. Um, we can play, black can play something like f4 check, and then after um, something say like, let's see, king to g4, then king to e4, now black is threatening to promote his own pawn. So king to g5, king to e3, king to g6, freeing his rook. But now f3, and even if we play king to g7, uh, black is going to be able to draw with rook take h7 check, and then after um, rook takes h7, f2, and then we are going to have a situation where again the white king is not able to help out, and then we are going to have a position where um, it's going to be a draw because white will have to sacrifice his rook. Let's just go back real quick just to fill in some of the details here. Oop, wrong position. Um, After f4 check, if white played king to f3, then simply king to f5, would end up in a draw too, because again, white, um, if white goes ahead and takes this, the black king will just come over here and um, take this pawn as well. So that's going to be a draw. Just real quick, some analysis I did. If instead, so black doesn't have to play f4 check, he could also play something like king to f6, just heading for this pawn, which should also end up in a draw. After king to f4 and king to g6, then again, these pawns are going to be lost, and the rook against rook will be a draw. So just going back to the position here, just to review the main line of this position, um, White's best move here is g5. He's going to sacrifice the g pawn. And after rook to g4 check, king to h3, rook to g5 check, the next key move here is rook to b4 check. Okay, and after the king moves, uh, the winning move here is to play h7, advancing the pawn and preventing um, black from stopping it. After rook to h5 check, rook to h4 will win. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that position. I really thought it, even though it's a relatively simple position, it had a lot. It wasn't just a tactical position. You also had to understand the concept of some important endgame concepts like your rook position, as well as behind advanced pawns, as well as the importance of the king in the endgame. So that's how we're starting off 2018, and I hope that you found it enjoyable and instructive. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please press the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I have a lot of interesting videos planned for 2018, and if you have any other ideas, please feel free to leave a comment and let me know, and I'll take it into consideration. Otherwise, have a great day, good luck with your chess, and I'll talk to you soon.